because if I like it or we like it, it's like I'm thinking about it all the time. I'm reading about it. I want to talk about it. You could see that I'm excited. Like I'm the worst. You could even ask Edleen. Like when I'm surprising someone with something, like a gift or whatever it is, it's almost impossible for me not to tell the person I'm surprising. Like,
Yeah,
dude, it
totally.
is horrendous. Like Edleen will tell you when I proposed to her. Oh my gosh, when was that? Like almost 6 years ago. She was like, "Oh, I knew you were proposing that weekend." Dude, no, check this out. Edleen literally said that Friday when she left work, she told all her coworkers, "Oh, Jake's gonna propose to me this weekend." Because I guess I'm not really good at like people can like. Here's the thing I got to make clear for people listening. If someone says something in confidence to me or a secret like that's
Right.
private, I don't
Yes.
go around and share that. But when I'm surprising someone, it
Yeah.
is near impossible for me to hold it in. I get too excited. Oh my gosh, that's just how I am, I guess.
Dude, that is one way. We talked about it in the last episode, and we're talking. I'm sure we'll talk about as we go on how we are different and how we're similar. And man, I'll tell you, that's one way that you and I are the same freaking person. Because like see, it seems it's like compared to the proposal, it's a whole different playing field. But I got Dominica tickets for a concert in June or July for Christmas, and it was like December 2nd. I was like, it was like Ace Ventura when he's like trying to keep his butt from talking. It was like
Yeah.
I held
Yep.
it in though. I can't
Yep.
tell you, dude. Like there were like four or five times when I like not even exaggerating, where I legit in my mind was like, "Be cool, guy."
Yeah, I don't know why it's so hard. It feels like I'm gonna burst. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, what is that? I don't even know.
Mm.
Who knows?
Enthusiasm is a hell of a drug, man.
Most importantly, are you watching Yellowstone?
Okay. I
Let's hear
saw
it.
I saw that in the notes, and I've been interested in checking it out. I'm a big fan. Well, there's a few like gun smoking stuff that I want to go back and watch from like back in the day. Anyway, though, my impression is that Yellowstone is kind of a continuation of that. Is that fair to say? Because Yellowstone's the new one, right?
Yeah, so Yellowstone. Essentially, I'm going to try to explain what Yellowstone is. And last time I tried to do this, I totally butchered it. So, so it's basically Kevin Costner. He owns the Yellowstone, the Dutton Ranch in Yellowstone, obviously, and so that's his land. They've had it for I don't know, 100 years or a little bit longer. Like his family has owned that land for a while. So his land, it's kind of this fight in a way between him, the Native Americans that are on a reservation close by because it was initially their land, I
Mhm.
believe, and then there is new developers that have come from probably California, I'm sure. I can't
Yeah,
remember, but
sounds about
have
right.
come there and they want to build a resort and they want his land to be able to build the resort. So it's like
Mm,
this three-way sort of war over
interesting.
this land. I guess that's the most simple way to put it. And Kevin Costner, in case you know, he's like my best friend because well, we didn't really meet, but I saw him in person once at
Oh yeah.
Pebble Beach when I was a kid. I saw him
Oh
golfing,
nice.
and he was terrible, but he was really funny. So that makes us like best friends. But yeah, dude,
It's
the
cute.
show is off the chain. It is
Okay.
so good.
That one, and it just came out like a few months ago, didn't it?
So the fourth season, the fourth season just came out within the last like month or 2 months or however long ago it was. But the show started, I think it was in 2018. We
Okay.
didn't start watching it until last year though. So yeah, you got to
I'll check
check
it
it out.
out. Totally.
And if you do need another show, have you heard
Mm.
of 1883?
No.
Okay. So 1883 is the prequel for Yellowstone, and that
Oh, cool.
just came out like a couple weeks ago.
Okay. So is
Yeah.
is it is different actors?
Yes, different actors. What's his name is
Oh,
actually.
1883 would be hella time ago. I would like in the future, huh?
You know who the main actor in 1883 is? What's Tim McGraw?
Interesting. I didn't even know Tim McGraw acted.
Yeah, I've seen him in a couple things. Like he was
Yeah.
in that Blindside movie, the football movie,
Oh, I
years
forgot he was the
ago.
husband, huh?
Yep, he was
Yeah,
the
he was good
husband.
as the
So
husband. I
yeah, so
remember
he
liking
has
him.
some roles or whatever. I mean, I know he's big and famous with his music. I don't personally listen to country music, but like his role, he's doing really good in the role in the show is awesome. So that's another one you have to check out in case you don't already have a really long list of shows that you have to check out.
I do, but I'm adding it to the list. I have this list of shows, and then when somebody who's whose opinion I mean I hold when somebody whose opinion I hold above the general like mentions something, and then I'm like it goes up on the list. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's right.
So
Love it.
so
What
I just
are you
moved up
watching
on the
anything
list.
good right now?
I'm so busy with everything that I'm doing that it's like I don't even have like when I put on shows like I'm watching like Dragon Ball Super when I'm going to sleep. You know what I mean? Like I don't have like and even I don't know if I know you like cartoon. I don't think cartoons were ever your thing anyway, right?
When I was a kid, but like
Yeah.
Rugrats and then Rocket Power and those type. But like I was never huge into cartoons like later on.
So adult animation has a real broad range nowadays of kinds of material that they present, and Dragon Ball Super is just about as simplistic and like basic. Let's hit the tropes as it gets. Like that's not even a really great way to say it. Basically, it doesn't require any brain power. There's lots of like animation and animation shows where you're like you kind of got to pay attention. You got to follow the story. Like I'm on like let's click and let's look at the pretty colors. So, like just because I'm like so as we've talked about offline, my actually maybe I didn't even get into this too much. The last 6 months, I'd say, I guess it's a little bit more than that. Over the last year, it's been recovering from, the pandemic. Because when the pandemic hit, actually, it's perfect because later on, I see on the notes you asked about how personal training going. This is how it's going.
Yeah, let's hear it. Yeah, tell me about it.
Earlier, so when COVID hit, it took me out. I'm gonna throw a beep in there. Sorry. It took me out. Like took my business out. I was just getting to the point where I was getting ready to quit my day job. My night job is really what it was. I was working retail to make ends meet. Just about ready to quit retail, and COVID hit. All my business gone. Starting back over from scratch.
Oh my gosh.
And so this has been a long process of building back. And it wasn't until I'd say probably about 8 months or so ago when my business started to come back in any kind of real way. Well, maybe a little bit more than that, but I'd say it's in the last year it's really been. Are we gonna make it? Or are we gonna have to go and find more work, or are we gonna be able to make this work to pay for my living? And in this last 8 months a year, it's gone from one client that actually ended up coming back from before to now I'm comfortable again, which is such a relief. But I forget what the transition, because there was a connection. The reason why I brought that up to begin with, you're asking.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember too. I got so excited about your personal training stuff. I don't even remember what we were talking about before. I think you were telling me about the show you're watching, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh,
about superpower.
Yeah. I think the point it was talking about like so the it's a real abstract, but the point being is that I am watching shows that are easy on my brain because now in this last 8 months my business has come back.
And got it.
The last couple months, like I've signed on for this podcast. I've started Thoughtful Movement and Fitness, which listeners I will be talking about more as we go along. Thoughtful Movement and Fitness is my it's my brand. It's my catch-all brand for my online training, my live streaming, and my instructional videos. So I've just been like kind of going. Like I get up every day and I'm like, okay, and you know what this is like. Oh, yeah. That's what you've been doing with this, right? Yep. So, So my TV watching has been like, how can I help my brain not do work?
Oh yeah, just the mindless stuff that you go to sleep to, basically. Yeah, we So what Adeline and I do for the most part, like after we put the kids down at night, we'll put on a show and we'll lay down and then fall asleep. Hopefully early. That's what normally happens. And the best show for that, and I'm a bigger fan than you, sorry, is The Office. That is,
dude, no way you're a bigger fan than me.
Especially if you've already, seen it through. Like after that, you already know the storyline, so you don't need to pay attention. It's like something. It's funny though, because like, you wouldn't want to give the general recommendation to tell people to watch stuff before bed, because sometimes it simulates people. Right. But literally, The Office though, it's like the opposite effect. If you've already seen it, you could just watch it and then fall asleep to it. So Adeline and I do that all the time.
Dude, absolutely. I'm right there with you. Actually, when Netflix got rid of The Office, I went out and I got it. I bought the entire series on iTunes because it was for like $30, and everywhere else was selling for like $1.30, $1.70, somewhere in that range.
Dude,
Got it for $30, dude.
it streams on Peacock.
I know. I felt like such a dummy when I realized that. But at the same time, I was stoked about it because it's like, now I've got it. And if Peacock gets rid of it, but even though they're not gonna, because it's the like high, this is the highest watched show in the last 10 years, probably. I think longer. No, probably about 10 years. I bet we'd have to look it up, but I know it's like way and by far the most watched show, like of all of them.
The funny thing with The Office, too, I tell this to everyone. So when I ask people if they watch it, a lot of people said, oh, I tried it and I just didn't like it. Here's the thing. So when my wife introduced me to watching The Office, I had zero interest. I'm like, this show is going to be terrible. This show is going to be horrendous. She's like, no, just give it a chance. So
which it kind of is. I mean, it kind of is in the best way, right?
or especially like if you start from season 1, where it's a little bit slower, maybe even the beginning of season 2, it's so slow. And I was like, I didn't think it was good. She's like, no, give it a chance. So I was like, fine. And then after, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 episodes, maybe even more, I was like, oh no, I actually like this. And then it started getting better and better. But here's the thing though, that's an issue. If you're trying to recommend a show for someone and tell, oh yeah, just watch 10 episodes and then it'll get good. That's a lot to ask for to like a show. But if anyone listening out there hasn't watched The Office, if you do give it a chance, it's really good. And then maybe you can become a big fan like me, unlike Clayton over here.
My partner Dominique and I talk about this fairly regularly, considering how old of a show it is, but that it's the first time you watch it, and it's such a watch show that people are going to be listening and be like, yeah, you're right. Like the first time you watch it for everybody, you're like, oh my God, these people. Like what? Like they're so bad. They're so dumb. They do like Michael Scott is the dumbest, most insensitive, especially now in 2021. Like antiquated stuff. It's actually a perfect amount of time almost has passed to like make the stuff that's not cool to say anymore even more impactful. It's a bit funnier, true. Even though it's worse. The
non-PC stuff.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
But that first time you're like, oh, it's just like you're cringing the whole time. But once you get past that cringe, I feel the same way about It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Have you watched it all?
I've seen a couple, but
so
I haven't. I never got past the threshold. I wasn't like a huge fan. I could see how people like it, but the few episodes I watched, I was like, eh.
Well, so similarly to The Office, it's kind of the opposite end of the spectrum, but it'll make more sense as I say. So taking a step back, you go into you start watching It's All Sunny in Philadelphia. It's basically half hour of 4 people screaming at each other. You know what I mean? Like that's all it really is. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. 4 then 5 people who are just like yelling at each other the whole episode and just being total pieces of shit. And similarly to The Office, I found, and I think that It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, most Sunny fans probably have found, that first time you watch it, you're like, oh, or like the first few episodes, you're like, oh, and then similar to The Office, you get used to the quirks of the character and they start to have redeeming qualities.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's not just jackasses doing stupid things that are offensive. Now it's like, oh, they're people, they're just jackasses doing stupid things that are offensive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like that's the thing with The Office is like they're like Michael Scott is such a dick, but then there are moments where it's like, oh, he's actually good at his job, or he's good at the sales part, right? Yeah. Oh, he's actually he has the moments where he's like sane and respectful and kind, and then he's back to being an asshole. But right, and that's the same thing in slightly different with Sunny, except because with Sunny it's like they're just being assholes. But if you take a step back and like look at it, what they're doing is the writers are. It's like South Park. The behavior is abhorrent, but in the expression of these stories and characters, they're actually saying stuff about like society and the world at large. And like they're playing with both sides, which is the really impressive thing, right? Because especially in today's world where like left doesn't want to talk to right and right doesn't want to talk to left, when you have these materials where like those two sides of us, which are part of all of us, and that's the thing that's crazy. And not to go into politics or all that, but like when we really get down to it, we're arguing about two sides of a self that we all have within us in some way, you know, we're talking about kindness on one side and safety on the other, right? Or let me say, giving on one side, just say, you know, again, I don't want to get into politics or anything, but like, you know, one side is all about, you know, like giving all the money away, and the other side's all about keeping the money to be safe, right? These are two sides of the same token that we need both sides of, you know what I mean? But
that is kind of funny,
right? And
yeah.
So perfect example, as somebody who strays more left, it would be like, it's stupid, like to like, it's the people who are on the right who are armed who are the ones that are protecting my ability to say that I don't like guns as much. You know what I mean? So it's huge, you know, but nobody on either side wants, I mean, most often people don't want to have that nuanced conversation, which is kind of why we're here, right? I mean, it's not about politics, it's about fitness, but the nuanced conversation that reveals the real truth and not just the bullshit that is being shouted from one side or the other.
Dude, that reminded me, I can't remember if we talked about this a couple weeks ago, but how you just described it, that's what made me love Joe Rogan. Not for like anything specific. It's after I actually listened to him a few times. And even if we disagree on some stuff. Sure. So
it's easy to disagree with Joe Rogan.
yeah, but like, here's the thing. When he said this, it just clicked with me. He said, and tell me if I already told you this. He said, I don't feel like I fit in with anyone or anyone's camp. He said, I feel very strongly about having good social programs because I came from, you know, being on welfare, and then, you know, eventually our family got off it, and then obviously he became successful. But I also believe in, you know, the right to bear arms. And so he was kind of saying these opposing things when normally only someone on this side would say, versus if you're on this side, you would never agree with something like that. So he said that, and I've heard him talk about nuance before, and I was like, okay, that made me like him. Like, not despite whatever he believes or doesn't believe, because I was like, that's how I feel. Like for, you know, many things I feel I'm right of the center, like we've talked about before, but there's some things too where like certain specific scenarios I don't feel like that either. So it would be nice if there would be more people that would see that, you know, instead of just everyone shouting at each other online and arguing. It's like exhausting. I had to, especially over the last couple months, to not follow so many accounts that talk about politics. It's like exhausting. I was like, I can't do this anymore, dude.
Well, and the problem is with politics today, and there's this, how many podcasts are politics today? But I'm going to do it anyway. The problem with politics today is everything's pointing. Everything's this, that, point, this, that, this. Like, let's sit and have a conversation about these tough issues and figure them out. And not to say that there's going to be an easy answer to them, right? But this divide that we have is not only fake, it's exacerbated by a false feedback loop. Because we're like, oh, you know, and you know, don't want to go down into all the social media stuff and all the algorithms and everything, but everything in our society, it's the echo chamber, and everything in our society is directing us towards moving away from each other. And especially like just even today, it's January 6th. Can't be more of a pertinent day to be talking about the divide in our country.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. You're right. Yeah.
Today's the anniversary of the, whether your politics say insurrection or your politics say, you know, capital, whatever it is. The point being is we're 1 year out from, you know, the thing that you and I, at least I should just speak for myself, I never thought would happen in my lifetime. You know what I mean? Like that we'd have anyway, not try to get into that situation or the politics behind it, but what it does exemplify is this divide and this chasm between the two sides where there's so much space for conversation that is not being utilized. You know what I mean? And so, you know, it's maybe incidental or coincidental or ironic or whatever that we find ourselves in this situation, and the podcasts are so popular right now because that's exactly what we need. I mean, we need an opportunity to talk. So, you know, I'm glad to be here and be doing that.
You know, the problem is, it's like these people, I wish these people that are arguing on sides on social media, I always think, man, what if they legitimately, like, were sitting down in the same room together and hashing stuff out or talking about their own point of view or perception. But here's the other side to that coin. Like, I don't know if anyone wants that, because some people literally online, they are doing stuff to get attention, like clickbait.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the crazier
Yep.
off the wall stuff I say, the more clicks I get, which is true.
Yeah.
Like, dude, I'm not going to name the person. And it's actually not even a political thing, but this guy in the fitness space has been promoting some somewhat outlandish things, excuse me. And just a couple weeks ago, I saw his account it was really big. It had, I don't know, 600 and something thousand, right? So it's a lot of people. I saw him again today. He popped up on my feed, and he is at almost 1 million followers. And it's just like the more outlandish things you say, the crazier things, the more abrasive. It's just like click, click, click. So that's the thing that I can't stand. You know, it's like how many people actually want to get in a room and like talk to each other about this stuff. I don't know if these people do. I really don't, to be honest.
I mean, I feel like that culture has permeated all levels of our society too, right? Because even like even our Congress people, that's the game they're playing. You know what I mean? It's the effective game that they have to play, because that's the way our society is set up. So it's almost like it's even hard to point at politicians being like, you guys are doing this because it's the game that they're offered, and they're like, okay, I'll play the game, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's the same thing as I feel like, and I hate to compare ourselves to this, but it's the comparison's accurate. It's podcasting and the whole internet thing. I think, again, I'm only going to speak for myself, but my guess is that I can speak for both of us when I say this. I actively resisted the internet and social media and everything that came with it, because I grew up in a time where all that exploded, and you and I were on AIM, and our parents were like, stop that texting crap. A year later, they're texting us to stop texting, whatever. So what happened in our age group, and we're 31 and 32, right? I got that right,
Mm-hmm.
right? You turned 32
in June.
Oh, I almost said, you see that? We'll go back in the video. You said, so I started to say,
yeah, I saw that. Yeah, so 6 more months and I'll be good old 32.
Oh, dude, 32 was the first time I was like, oh.
That's when I turned 30. I was like, oh dang, that's real. That's real right there.
we're not babies anymore, man. Like that's the thing we were talking about. Like yesterday, it was like we're I have the habit of saying we're young, not that young.
No.
So, but anyway, back to what I was saying was our age group. We had like this kind of push away of technology, and now in our 30s, in our early 30s, we've come back full circle. Not even full circle, but we're like, oh, okay, this is the game that has to be played in order for me to have a house. You know what I mean?
Dude.
Not to say that
this is
going to have us a house, but you know what I mean? Like we're talking about scalability. You just can't compare the scalability of a project like this that can get access so many years via the internet to going and working with someone one-on-one.
Yeah.
You can't compare it for the other more, in-person reasons as well. Because so there's two, like similarly, there's two sides of that token too. But anyway, I digress.
Absolutely. Speaking of the internet and clickbait and all that fun stuff, I want to ask you, do you know who Grimes is? It's a musician.
I read that.
Okay.
She's a lady, right?
So yeah, I had seen pictures of her before. I didn't know this was her until I saw this article recently. So Grimes is or was Elon Musk's girlfriend.
Oh yeah. And
they
still they have a kid together and stuff.
Oh, I have no idea.
It's like the kid's like named like hashtag, but I don't know. It's that's horrible. That's not the kid's name, but it's like it's like some code name or something. Anyway.
So yeah. So Grimes, I think I'm saying that right. So this was earlier in the year, but I didn't see this till recently. She sold something like $6 million worth of NFTs. You said you're familiar with NFTs?
Very, very little. Like I was like, oh, that ring a bell, and I Googled it. I was like, yeah, okay, that's what I was thinking, but that's about as far as I got. It's that it's block based or whatever.
Yeah, like I don't have some deep understanding about it, but I think it was created for like digital art type of thing. Like that was one of the first like thoughts. But musicians apparently they're doing like short videos of their music or something on these NFTs and selling them. And dude, $6 million. And then I heard another story, don't know his name. This was just recently. Within a day, this other artist who I don't even know if it was a big name, $3 million in a day or two from selling NFTs. Isn't that crazy?
So, okay, my first question in my brain, I don't know if you have the answer to this, is I imagine because it's crypto related that there is some kind of stock market like analysis of the value of that NFT, right?
That
Probably fluctuates.
I have no idea. Like, I know there's similarities with crypto with that, but I don't know how that works though.
So I guess what my brain's driving at is the same thing that it drives at when we start talking about crypto. Where is the it's a real blurred line between solid, functional, tangible thing to intangible value. You know what I mean? Like like my problem is the same problem that I think everybody else ultimately has with any kind of blockchain technology. Is like, why does it work? How does it work? I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to get into that. And there's a whole podcast that explain all this, and I could be exploring it. My point of saying that is simply to say, when you have this much lack of understanding about something that people are investing so much in, like, I'm out.
Yeah,
you
no,
know what I mean?
No, that's smart. That's definitely a smart thing. I during the pandemic, I started researching a lot about crypto, and I mean, I wouldn't say at all I have some advanced knowledge of it because I don't, but you know, I did invest some, and I don't like have a ton of it or anything. But
how's it work out?
What was that?
How's it worked out?
So crypto, it's very volatile. Like it's like this, dude. It's like the stock market on steroids, like going both ways. So I mean, in the very beginning, it was nuts, dude. Like there was times like I was making thousands of dollars in one day, and then it would go, but then like it just goes right back down. Like so, it was doing all that. But then I started realizing like I want to cool it with with this because, like you said, the actual utility with some of the different cryptocurrencies, I don't know what that's going to be in the future because they make all these crazy just garbage coins that don't mean anything, like that might not ever have utility. But some of the top ones, I think they're going to be here to stay, like Bitcoin and Ethereum, Dogecoin. And then there's going to be a few other where you can actually use that to purchase things. For now, like 90% of them, you know, it's not even, I won't even want to say just like a stock, but like you can't really do anything with it. There's not utility necessarily, so that's the only thing with it. But it is kind of cool to think about though, crypto in the future and what that's going to look like.
Well, it's also one of these things that it seems like because of the break in understanding between laymen's and people who understand, that it's a really opportune time to be taking advantage of it because you know, there's probably relative to how many people would like to be making money with it, there's probably very few that are actually doing it, and those few people are probably making buku bucks. You know, that's the whole reason why. So this is how it has affected me. The crypto craze has affected me. Is, you know, I told you I built a computer over this last year, and I've been buying. You know, as I mentioned in the last podcast, I've been building a studio over the last 10 years, and so what's happened is because of crypto. So are you familiar? You're familiar with the way they mine crypto?
I am, but I don't have a deep understanding of it.
Nor do I. But the very, very basics of it is they're using graphics processing units to do the actual processes. So what's happened is all of the GPUs across the board before COVID were swooped up, and for well before COVID were swooped up, and they're all being constantly used to mine. Because if you buy that, you know, if you know how to mine and you buy a GPU, that's pure money for you because you're like, I mean, again, I'm not an expert, but likely I'm thinking, you know, anyway, I shouldn't talk about things I don't understand. But the point of what I'm saying is that I don't even remember what the point of what I was saying was, because I just got started. In my brain, I was like, you know what? I don't know what I'm talking about, which comes back down to the whole point of what I was trying to say, which is those people who do know what they're talking about are making some cash right now, bro.
Yeah, but it is a place people, like you said in the beginning, people can really be taken advantage of right now.
Yeah,
like,
and my tangent was just that I can't buy any of this stuff. All the stuff I need to buy, like GPU units.
Oh,
like, I would pay like $400 for one. That was like that would be legit. That same one right now is like $2,000.
Oh,
like,
gotcha.
And there's no way around it.
Yeah, that's a lot right there. Dude, have you seen that really cool study? It was done out of Dr. Bill Campbell's lab. I think he calls it the physique lab, where they had two groups of women. One increased their calories by, I think it was 250, but it was just protein. The other group, they decreased their calories by 300 and were on a low protein diet. Have you seen that, dude?
I've read a little bit about it, but it's similar to the crypto stuff. I don't have enough knowledge to talk in detail, but I'd love to. Excuse me. Oh, I'd love to hear about it.
Dude, you got to check it out. It's awesome. So it's a gateway to really start understanding how important protein is. Like, sure, we've heard that like over the years, but at the end of the study, the people that ate more calories, the ones that, but it was just protein, they actually lost, I think it was double the body fat percentage as the people that decreased their calories and were on a low protein diet. That is crazy.
You know, dude, it makes so much sense though, because so I shouldn't say so much sense though, because a little context, like for me, you just described my most recent experience with, well, I don't know. I guess mine's more macro experience. I've been putting on weight lately. I've put on probably about 20 pounds of muscle in the last, I don't know, pretty, you know, fairly short period of time. And for me, it was the first time that I had ever gained that much muscle weight in such a short period of time. And there's multiple reasons for that. But when it came down to it, what it was I finally figured out for myself that I was going from a scarcity mindset as opposed to abundance mindset. I mean, it's a little bit of an abstract connection, but what I was doing was I was under eating. I was in my mind, I was eating protein because I wanted to build. I understand you need protein to build the muscle, but I was still I was basically trying to cut and gain at the same time. You know what I mean? But like
that's a hard game to play.
Exactly. I played it for years, and there is credence to doing that with a different goal and attitude, and we'll get into that later because that is real in line with kind of the stuff I teach now. But that's beside the point of this, as much as to say, for me, for the first time, what I started doing was I started being disciplined about getting food in my gullet. You know what I mean? Instead of like just making sure I was eating the right thing or eating, you know, right portions. Like I was like, okay, every couple hours I'm putting food in my mouth, whether I want to or not. And I mean, it's just, I mean, and we know these are pretty standard things that we talk about, but to have that experience after having not maximize, to be fair, I was never trying to gain weight. This is the first time in my life I've tried to put on weight. So it's not like I'm like, oh, I was trying to put on weight, it wasn't working. I was never trying to put on weight before. But to have that experience of like, okay, it's not about, when I want to put on weight, it's not about lifting. I mean, yeah, I'm gonna lift, right? But that's not what it's about for me, because I'll lift whether I'm trying to gain weight or not.
Yeah, of course.
About getting that food. Like you see, I walked in today. I had 2 Z bars. I had 2 that's it. Not that these are particularly muscle building things, but I just am making sure I get calories in me, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, I am not surprised to hear that with the physique lab study that the protein increase decreased the fat weight, because, you know, from a functional standpoint, they're using that protein, right? It's not like from before, whatever calories that may have been, there were probably calories that weren't really being utilized by the body, right?
Yeah.
So the idea being, and this is how they connect to what I was talking about, my own experiences, like we tend to think of progress being made, especially layman's, we think about progress being made by watching what we eat and, you know, and you know, getting in a calorie deficit. And that's not the case necessarily at all. Getting in a calorie surplus, you can still continue to lose fat weight and gain muscle weight if you are, in fact, that's the only way you can, you know what I mean, is with the calorie surplus. And, you know, it's more nuanced than that, obviously, but you got to have enough calories if you're going to put weight on, right? Muscle weight, or fat weight too. But
yeah, it's funny you're saying how you, you know, put on 20 pounds and doing all that. That reminded me when I was a new trainer. I was, how old was I? 19, 20 years old when I just moved to San Diego. So I showed up at the gym, and at that point I was pretty lean. Yeah, I probably weighed $180, which is really light for me. Like that's really light. Yeah. And I get in the gym and I look at all the trainers there. They were so much more muscular than me, and I got self-conscious. And
Mhm.
within, man, probably it must have been the first like few months I was there. I was like, okay, I need to put on some serious weight. So I didn't specifically track, but I would say I was probably eating it in the 4 to 4,500 range or so. That would be my guess, somewhere in there. Which
It's
for
a lot of
180,
calories.
that's like a good amount for 180. And then,
Yeah.
of course, doing resistance training. And dude, it must have been 6 months. I got up to like 230. Yeah. Oh my
Damn, dude.
gosh. Yeah.
So okay, so my question for you,
Yeah.
that 50-pound weight gain, was that pretty equal parts fat and muscle gain, or was that much more muscle, or like how did that play out for you, uh, chasing it in that way where your goal wasn't necessarily, I'd imagine, to be cut, but your goal was to kind of catch up to these other people who
Yeah.
are moving bigger weights?
With going that fast, which I don't think is the correct way to do it, like that was just out of control.
Yeah.
I would guess it was 70% fat,
Oh
30%
wow. Okay.
muscle. That would be fair to say. So I just I remember my clothes are all tighter, my pants are a little bit tighter, and I'm a little bit bigger, so I'm not as like quick walking around and stuff. But yeah. But anyways, though, that study with the calories, it just goes to show how important it is, no matter what your goal. Most people, how prioritizing protein in some capacity, it could benefit you if you're trying to lose weight, if you're trying to gain muscle, if you're trying to do some type of body recomp, like you were saying, how important it is to do that long term. And I know it's easy to say like, oh yeah, everyone takes, drinks protein shakes and does that. But I don't think most people get enough protein.
Oh,
Or
absolutely.
how about this? The optimal amount of protein. Like, yes, they get enough to survive,
Hmm.
but the optimal amount to gain or retain muscle or lose weight or whatever it is, especially with how satiating protein is, I don't think most people do that. So that was really cool seeing that study, and like how you can actually eat more in a
Hmm.
way and benefit from it. Like, I'm not saying go out and eat thousands of more calories than you actually burn
Right.
every day of whatever food it is, but like if it's protein, it does have some pretty awesome effects. Unfortunately, with the fitness industry, as me and you talk about all the time now, sometimes there's some not so good
Oh my God.
information
Right.
out there. Did you see the post I put up for our account yesterday
I
or
haven't
this
looked.
morning?
I haven't looked at that, but literally when I got on this morning, I pulled up YouTube for something just to check, and it was like, you need this to lose 25
Oh,
pounds, and
dude.
it's like, like it's not even somebody's like voice. It's like an electric voice where they typed it in. And
Yeah.
this is why you're fat, and it's like showing
Oh,
like a
it's horrid.
diagram of like somebody's like translucent body, and like it's got their guts all big.
Yeah.
It's just all the shit we're
Yeah.
talking about. But anyway, you're sorry, I don't mean to digress or
Dude.
pull away from what you're saying.
Oh my gosh. So it's just like every day there's something new. And
Oh yeah.
so yesterday, so someone was marketing, all you need to do to lose weight, just eat these special chia seeds.
Yeah.
Dude, come on.
Oh
Like
my god.
the IG, the fitness IG influencers are off the chain right now. Like saying, "Oh yeah, if you eat these, you'll lose 20 pounds." I'm just like, "Oh, we have a battle that we are fighting right now."
Dude, you know what I just realized when you said that is I bet you it's especially hot right now because everyone feels so bad. Everyone's in, going into year 3 of basically lockdown. You know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah.
I know we're not all in lockdown, but like everyone's feeling the pandemic. Everyone's feeling like mental health. It's right after the holidays too, right? When everybody
Mm,
spikes with their mental health stuff, right? When everyone's feeling the heaviest because they just ate a bunch of food.
yeah.
It's opportunistic prey. That's what
Yeah.
it is.
That
It's
exactly.
opportunistic predatory behaviors. That's
Yep.
that's not meant to help you, the consumer, improve whatsoever. It's the goal is to get that money in their pocket.
Yeah.
A good rule I like to think of, when Jonathan Goodman has a lot of really good posts that he talks
Mhm.
about the difference between IG influencers and trainers, and like proper trainers, and I'll put ourselves into this category for that. Um, as a little rule of thumb, listeners, uh, if the fitness professional is telling you that it's just this easy,
Mm.
run away.
Red flag.
Yeah, it's never just this easy. There's no shortcuts. There's only habitual discipline and action. That there is no shortcut. Any shortcuts also have short-term results. So when by the other side of that token is when you're looking for really quality fitness professionals, you're going to want to kind of look at some of the qualities that you're seeing here. Nobody's selling you anything. Nobody's talking about, people aren't talking about products. Where when you find good sources, you found people who are willing to question what they know and aren't going to spend their time telling you how what they know is what you should know. A good trainer, a good fitness professional is going to say, hey, where are you at and how can I help you meet your goals? Which is a whole different thing than, hey, buy this,
Yeah, dude, it's just sad though. Like, it's like you were just saying how it's especially around New Year's and other times like that people are just preyed on. And I put a couple posts out for people to see, like, hey, just be I want you guys to be warned. There is going to be some crazy fitness marketing coming up, in the next couple weeks. And, like always, there was tons of crazy stuff, being promoted. And I just think people so badly want that pill, or this black and white advice, like just do this and it's gonna be, you'll take this exact amount of days or eat exactly this, man. And it's disappointing too. Like just the other day, I can't remember where I was on, but this fitness trainer of supposedly 20 years was telling people, oh yeah, work with me and I'll help you gain 30 pounds of muscle in a month. I'm like, dude, come on.
Yeah.
Like really, that's If it looks too good to be true in the fitness industry, that's almost always the case. It's too good to be true.
If it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, shits like a duck.
Yep. Dude,
I'm pretty sure that's not how the phrase goes.
But how you said it was even better than normal. I loved it. Dude.
I like to, when we talk about stuff like this, I like there's two last things I want to leave our listeners with. One, IG influencers talk, trainers listen. Second thing.
Oh, that's good.
Right. And that's a Jonathan Goodman. That's not me. Let me make sure that's that. And he might've gotten it from somebody else, but this is straight out of Jonathan Goodman's mouth. Okay. Just as a repeat, IG influencers talk, trainers listen. Okay. I guess that's actually kind of ironic since we're sitting here talking, but
hey, but you guys get the point.
Yeah. The idea is if we had a guest here, you would, and you guys know this from being longtime listeners of Jake. He doesn't just respond with whatever the next thing is on his paper. He's listening to what the guest is saying and he's responding. And that right there is going to be the mark of, and I would even go as far as to say, not even just trainers. I feel like universally, those are the people you want to work with. The good leaders aren't the people who are going to say, hey, I know how this is done. Do it like this. Good leaders are people who are saying, I don't know how to do that. Let's go figure it out. So for whatever that's all worth.
Well, you want to talk a little bit fitness, some cool fitness stuff. Yeah. Sound good, dude. So I was thinking about this, actually not just the other day. I've been thinking about this a lot, even though I don't participate anymore, is I love Ollie lifters, Olympic lifting lifters, and coaches. And you know why?
Excuse me. That soda just made a comeback. Why?
So have you done Olympic lifting before?
No, not proper. I mean, yeah, I've lifted with Olympic form sometimes, but not properly. You know what I mean? It's just going in and doing my own thing, right?
But
so no is the right answer to that.
But it's really cool, and I started wanting to use this in other parts of my life, and coaching or fitness or anything. So what they do, which is really cool. So if you guys don't follow any Oli coaches online or Instagram, that's a good person to follow. So what they do is Olympic lifting is highly technical. There's so many moving parts in those lifts, and they take years to learn. Like for me, it took like 2 years of doing it to like suck at it.
Oh, wow.
Like it went from like I was horrendous at it to like just bad. Like, so anyways, though, like Olympic lifting, it's that technical. So what I noticed they do, which is really cool, is coaches, they find where the dysfunction or whatever part of the movement isn't going well. So it's like they diagnose a problem and give a very specific quote unquote treatment to correct that. So for example, in Olympic lifting, there's 3 pulls or like 3 sections of the lift. So you have the first pull, which is when you pull the weight off the ground. The next pull is when your whole body's extended and the weight is around your hips. And then the third would be, pulling under the bar if you're doing a snatch. So if they saw something wrong with the second pull, which is where the bar is around your hips, they correct it and diagnose it and give you a plan to correct that. So it'd be doing a movement like hang power cleans and doing that to practice being explosive with your hips. So I thought that was something really cool. And I feel most trainers, especially new trainers, imagine if you had that type of vision when you're training people. You see not that you just see a flaw in someone's movement, but you literally are giving them something to correct. Yeah. Like do this will help in this part of the movement. And so because I feel sometimes like dude, just the other day, this bothered me so much. I see this trainer at the gym all the time, and he sits there while his client is performing the movement. He has his clipboard, and he's just not even looking. Trainers. I'm like, dude, oh my God.
Does he have a stopwatch that he's like has right here in his face?
Dude, it's bad though. But anyways, though, I'm like, especially new trainers, like if you have that thought, like not only finding the movement pattern flaw, but giving something to correct that movement. So I thought that was really cool, and it was fascinating when I was going through my Olympic lifting certification. The coaches that I was learning from, it was amazing. Like they'd play videos and they would literally say, okay, where was the movement not optimal and what could you do to correct it? Like, it was legit.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing about that is I think from a generalist standpoint, which I consider myself, that's really become kind of an integral part of generalist training. You know what I mean? Because the reality is while we're talking about in this context Olympic weightlifters and high performance, those same issues are the same issues that people who are coming in off the streets have never done a lift in their life are having. Right? It might be it's different levels of targeted nuance, because obviously the Olympic weightlifter, you're going to have to get, you have to, as somebody watching an Olympic weightlifter, you really have to know your stuff super specifically, because it's going to be a difference of a centimeter that's going to potentially throw somebody's back out, right? When you're talking about Olympic weightlifting, while the margins of error and identification are not nearly as fine as a generalist, you simply are not going to have you're not going to be facilitating return business if you're not doing that, because what's going to happen is, at least with the Olympic weightlifters, they know what they've gotten into. Injury is part of the journey. Learning how to limit that injury is part of their journey. They're already on that. They know that's part of the game. Yeah. A layman coming in off the streets has no concept of that. All they've gotten through is, shit, I got to get up and sweat. And so it's my job as a generalist to know all this information and know that if I don't do a good job of doing that analysis and subsequent corrective exercise, not only am I not doing the best thing I can do for my client, because that's really the best thing you can do for your client, because you're going to help them, stave off injury and pain and all that, especially a general client. But so not only is it going to help, but it's counter to my own ultimate goals of making a living, because if I don't correct my new form discrepancy, that can bloom into a back end or whatever injury, and then they're out for a month or two, right? And then who knows if they're going to come back, because how many of us don't ever come back to exercise because we were injured and we didn't, it's like it was supposed to be a week off and it turned into a year off. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's counter in so many ways to what our goal is as trainers to begin with, to not do those things. And if anything, it's a goal of mine to bring that kind of attention that Olympic weightlifters get from their trainers to the general population and general and generalists, trainers who are generalists, because it's really easy. Like that clipboard trainer, because if you're not really giving them too much of a challenge, like you're probably not risking injury too much, right? But if you're really challenging their bodies, you have an elevated risk of injury. So you need to mitigate that with action, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, I could, as you can tell, I can go off and we can have a whole podcast just about this one topic. But it's mind blowing how short sighted we are as people and professionals, and as there's a theme in this podcast, whether we're talking about in our culture or we're talking about in this business, but lack of nuance can be a shot to the foot or head or leg or whatever,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I got to a point too where after I stopped doing CrossFit, because that's where I did Olympic weightlifting, I don't want to have some extreme fear mongering type of view, but I'm trying to think now, if we're talking about the general population of people, that exercises for health and for fun and all of that, like most of the listeners probably do. I've been thinking, like, should Olympic weightlifting, should they even do it?
Totally.
That's something like, so if you think of risk versus reward with Olympic weightlifting, if you look at like data, it's really safe, but that's because normally someone's being coached, and coaches there are normally fantastic. The ones I've seen, at least. And so should the general population do it? I'm kind of at a standstill with my thought with that, because I don't want to fearmonger someone out of doing it, because they're still awesome exercises. But if someone, just for example, say they're 40 years old, they've never trained in their life before, maybe you've never been too physical, never played sports, and all they want to do is just feel good, maybe look good, maybe lose a couple pounds, maybe just a very general goal that most people have. Should they Olympic weightlift? I'm like I said, I'm kind of in that standstill right now. I don't really know the best answer. I don't see the application for it like I used to, because back in the day, I'm like, oh yeah, everyone should be doing these moves. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the benefits, you can't deny the benefits that come with that kind of challenge. I liken it to, we were talking in the last podcast about me playing football. And I apologize too, because I'm making sure my alarm doesn't go back off, because I realize this is my first time that we're doing it right around this time. So many alarms are going off. Yeah. So apologies if another one pops off. But I liken it to football, we were talking about, because did I learn some of the most valuable lessons I'll ever learn in my life while I was playing football as a kid? Yeah. Would I ever recommend another kid do that because of the risk to injury in head and knee and whatever injury? No. So when we get into this question, the non-nuanced answer for me, at least as a generalist, is unequivocally no. Period. Never, ever, until they've established a foundational base of knowing how to lift, right? So to me, the question is not so much does this Olympic style have value to the layman? Is rather a question of is any of that value even accessible to the layman, right?
Yeah,
because
that's true.
If they don't have that foundational knowledge and foundational muscle memory, then it doesn't do much good to do a clean jerk, right? Because they're gonna jack their back up, right?
Yeah.
So it's when it comes back down to a question of nuance, and this is why it's so important that when you're talking to your fitness professionals, that there's somebody who has the ability to speak and discuss at this level. Because if you are a layman and somebody tells you to go do clean go lift this bar with hella plates on it, like there's a break there, and it happens every day.
Yeah, totally. I've always just thought their Olympic lifters were so cool, like, because most CrossFitters, like most of them, at least for me during my days, is like, you're more of a wannabe Olympic lifter. Like Olympic lifting is part of CrossFit. But most everyday people that you'd see in the gym, like they're not snatching or clean and jerking too much, especially snatching. So I remember I would always, like, whenever I would see someone that was really good at Olympic weightlifting, I was always like, man, that person looks so cool. Like I always thought that. I always have had mad respect for Olympic weightlifters, and unfortunately, I think they're taking Olympic weightlifting out of the Olympics. Did you hear that?
Really?
Yeah. I hope that's not true. I saw that online, that they might be taking it out.
Well, it is interesting because as we start getting into any kind of sport that's based on lifting heavy weights, we have to start. And this is honestly, this is a conversation about athletics and a larger conversation about athletics, but especially pertinent when we're talking about lifting heavy weights is when we start talking about performance enhancing drugs and their efficacy and their viability and their place in the position of when the goal is to lift as heavy as you can.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's how people, like all those guys,
Right.
all the strongmen, and they're pretty open about it. They've become more open about it. Most of the strongmen are using steroids in small, they're doing it in their safe way, right? I can't speak to that. That's none of my, but my point, and I'm not trying to weigh in on the use of that as a trainer. I'm against it, generally speaking. But now we're talking about how heavy can we lift in Olympic weightlifting. While it's not strongman competition, it's very much in that same category, right?
Yeah.
So now we start talking about, how does that play out when we're talking about competition and the international stage and, places like America or I think like Russia and places like have really strong Olympic weightlifting.
Oh yeah. The Russians. Right? Yeah. Everyone steals their knowledge from the Russians.
There you go.
Essentially.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and there's just no way. It's the whole Lance Armstrong thing. It's like when he got busted for the steroids or whatever he was using. It's like, yeah, absolutely, he shouldn't be doing that. But are we really all naive enough to think that everybody's not doing that? They're just better at not getting caught.
At least a lot of people are. When you're at that high level, it's going to come with that. There's no way you can get around that.
Absolutely.
And another style of training that my mind has completely changed from way more than Olympic lifting. I still love Olympic lifting, even though I don't do it anymore. But another style of training that I'm to the point where I think GP, the general population of people, doesn't really need to do. Personally, I don't think they need to do it, but many do it, and I don't necessarily think there's an application for it. Is high intensity interval training.
Interesting.
Yep.
Ooh, controversy.
Ooh, controversy. Yeah. So any listeners, if you don't know what this is, high intensity interval training, how it's supposed to be done. So it doesn't necessarily have to be an aerobic exercise, but pick, say, jogging. So high intensity interval training would be performing short bursts of very high intense, high power output type of running. So you'd sprint for, I don't know, say 10, 15 seconds or whatever. And then you're supposed to recover and rest, and you would walk then for a couple minutes, and then you would repeat. So traditionally, sessions with high intensity interval training or HIIT, they're supposed to be shorter. Most of them are supposed to be 15 minutes or 30 minutes, somewhere in that ballpark. But the problem now is, of course, the way they're marketed to people. It's like burn fat faster and all this stuff. Spend less time. You don't have enough
time in your life. Work out this way.
Yeah, exactly. But the problem too, which I see this in gyms a lot that teach HIIT classes, is you do this quote unquote high intensity, but then there's never actual rest periods in between or enough rest periods. So it's funny because it's like it's contradicting its own word. You know what I mean? Because for it to actually be high intensity, you would have to actually rest after that. So what can happen is it just turns into this 30-minute session of lifting when you're fatigued and with terrible movement, So that's the one thing. My mind has changed a lot because, not to go back to CrossFit again, there's similarities with how you train CrossFit to HIIT. Not necessarily the same thing, but the same principles. And what can happen is when you're always lifting when you're fatigued and you don't allow yourself to recover, it's going to affect your movement pattern. And then down the road, that's when you would start, there'd be more of a chance for you to get injured. Again, I don't want to fearmonger people out of doing something like HIIT, but it does encourage bad form if you don't give yourself the enough or the appropriate amount of a recovery period. So that's another thing. I'm thinking of the everyday person, the general population of people that come in. So think of your clients. Is there any of your clients, is there a good reason for them to do HIIT?
So God, I hate to be this one trick pony, but the conversation comes back to nuance. And it comes back to not so much. The short answer is yes. The short answer is yes, but with a caveat. The caveat being that I am, as the trainer, using the HIIT based activities as a tool to enhance the program as opposed to the program itself.
Ooh, a tool in the toolbox. Yeah, I like that.
Tool in the toolbox,
Yeah,
right?
that's
so
good.
so to give you a more real concrete version of how I play that out in real life is I'm never like, okay, we're going into our HIIT portion now. What I do is I I I present the exercises in the way that is most beneficial to the client on that particular day. So what that means is if a client comes in and they're rearing and ready to go and they're like, oh, I want to get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'll be like, all right, we're up in the intensity, right? But here's the key to that. Do I sit and do I think, oh, this is high intensity, this is a high intensity interval now training? No, I'm like, okay, we're going to up your intensity. And because I have the knowledge and because I'm a good trainer, because I'm a good trainer, I know that like I'm getting them rest. I know that the rest is more important arguably than the exertion itself, right? I mean, they're chicken and the egg, right? But the idea being that our muscles rebuild during recovery, and not to say that this is recovery, but the idea being that by taking rest is arguably the key. Rest is inarguably the key moment in the process of lifting and gaining weight where you actually get stronger. It's rest is when you're resting that your muscles rebuild, right? So not to say that that's happening in between high intensity intervals, but what you're getting is you're getting an opportunity to make the movements that you're doing efficient and effective. And so as long as the movements are efficient and effective and there's a purpose to why we're doing what we're doing, the rest is semantics, right?
Yeah.
The rest is tools in the toolbox. I also wouldn't, I wouldn't use, I wouldn't have somebody who hated cardio ride the bike for 20 minutes. But somebody who hates lifting, maybe I'll have them ride the bike for a total of 20 minutes, but it's broken up into 4 or 5 minute segments.
Yeah.
5 minutes is a long time to have somebody ride the bike. But the point being is that the best answer is always not a pre-designed answer when you're talking about training. The best answer is always, like I said earlier, we're talking about good trainers. A good program is about listening to your client, figuring out what works for them, and then experimenting with different things to continue to grow that, right? So I know that's a long-winded, roundabout way of answering that, but yes, there is value in when the opportunity comes up to be of value. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That said, there is a component to every single one of my workouts that has the philosophies of high-intensity interval training, within all of my programs. I set up, at the top of my program, I'll set up all my floor exercises, all of my aerobic based stuff. And then underneath I'll do all of my anaerobic based stuff. And then based on what's going on in the session, I'll jump around that program. Right. So that by its definition, there is a HIIT component because I'm having people lift heavy, or I'm lifting until their exertion level is like 7 or 8, maybe not 9 usually, but 7 or 8 out of 10. And then I'm saying, all right, take a rest, breathe in the nose, out the mouth, relax. And it's not that I'm taking an interval for that rest, but that moment of them resting effectively becomes high intensity interval training, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, long roundabout way to say it, but everything has its point and its place, right? Time and a place.
It's just something to consider if you've been looking into HIIT or you're considering doing it. So what I would recommend is first ask the question of why. Why are you doing it? Is it just because you saw it and it looks cool? Is it something that you think is going to benefit your health, or does it actually match what your goals are? So for someone that's about to do it, that would be the first thing. Why are you going to do it? Now, second, if you do decide to do it, the other 2 recommendations, start at a lower dose. I wouldn't do this every day, especially if you're already, in the weight room or already on a different program. Don't, on top of that, then do HIIT workouts every day. So start with the lowest dose possible and go from there. See how you feel, see how your body responds. And then the third piece of advice for if you're going to do HIIT is give yourself enough time to recover between the bouts of high intensity. So, for example, if you're sprinting or whatever movement or whatever exercise you're performing, make sure you can rest and let your heart rate get down at least a little bit, or else you're kind of defeating the purpose there. So that's what I'd say. And
Absolutely.
now let's go to our Q&A of the day from our audience. And I love this this question. It's not talked about too much, but I think it's important. So in the question,
such a great question.
Should you eat before you train in the morning? So like I said, I love the question, and I especially love it because most of my lifting career, I have trained in the morning. So lately, I would say the last like couple months or so, I've actually been training a little bit later in the morning, which I've never really done. Back in the day, I'd wake up at 4:30. I'd be at the gym warming up by 5:20, 5:30, and I would start training by 6. I did that for years and years and years. And so anyways, point being is I had to figure out what am I going to do as far as nutrition before I train. I personally did not like training on an empty stomach if there was any type of intensity in my workout, which there normally was, a decent amount of intensity. So what I did, I woke up a little bit earlier. I know no one likes to do that, but I woke up a little bit earlier than I probably had to so I could get some food in. And what my recommendation was for someone asking that question. So if they completely are against eating before training in the morning, they don't want to wake up a little bit earlier, which is understandable. My first recommendation was make sure you eat a good amount the night before. Make sure the meal is plenty of protein, plenty of carbohydrates, and then, of course, fats too. Like all that the night before, it's great. So if you are someone that doesn't eat in the evening time, that would be probably an issue if you're going to train in the morning. Secondly, I do think most people, the main complaint I would hear with this from people, when I was training was it hurts my stomach when I eat this early in the morning, which I get. I don't like having big meals right when I wake up. So what I started to do is I would just eat things that don't upset my stomach and something that would sit easy on my stomach. So what I told the person is if you don't normally eat before, try this. Try something very small, something that doesn't affect your stomach too much. So for me, it's, oatmeal doesn't seem to sit heavy in my stomach, and some fruit doesn't. I'll even have a protein shake with just water and something like that. But what I told her, great question, I told her start whatever you decide to do, start with something small and see how you feel. If you notice going into your workout that eating just a little bit that makes you feel great, awesome. You're in a good spot. And then slowly, if you can, increase your calories or your meal a little bit and see if it affects you in a beneficial way. And other things that I used to eat too before my workout, which I did for a long time, was dried fruit. Just something, kind of fast carbohydrates and really easy on your stomach, and it's going to really help. And just something to consider, because I know a lot of people out there, they do the fasted training in the morning. There's nothing wrong with that. But if we're looking at optimal, eating something is normally going to be the way to go. Clayton, what do you think with this one?
So this is an interesting one because, traditional fitness knowledge tells us, you eat in the morning. I mean, when we were growing up, it was like you always ate in the morning. Yeah. That was how you even like that was like number one way you lost fat. Eat in the morning, which has been debunked pretty much. But here's where I fit into this. I think that the most important thing that you can do when approaching this topic is be willing to experiment.
Yep.
Because the reality is, and this is one thing that people might argue with me, but I think people would have a hard time arguing with me about this, is the best program is not the best program that's right for Jake, the best program that's right for Clayton, or, the best food, is not the best food that's, eating is the best time to eat and the best food to eat is not the same for Clayton as it is for Jake. And it's not the same for Tiffany, maybe her name was, as it is for Clayton or Jake, right? So being willing to question and experiment is an invaluable tool, because what you can do is you can say, well, I think I'd like to eat in the morning. So you get up a little bit early, like Jake is saying, eat some food, find some oatmeal, something that doesn't sit in your stomach. I wouldn't go and eat, 12 eggs and, a pack of bacon, but, protein shake and, and oatmeal, some fruit. Yeah. Something that sits light in your stomach, something that's going to digest fairly easily. Right. But here's that, like, objectively that's optimal, because you're getting up in the morning, your metabolism is getting going again, you're putting food in your stomach, that energy is going to get into your system probably right as when you need it when you're lifting, right? That said, that just doesn't work for some people. It doesn't work for me.
True.
Yeah, I can't eat first thing in the morning. That's not my MO. In fact, my MO, and we'll get into this in later podcasts too, but I'm very hedonistic by nature. Which means that I end up eating a lot, and I emotional eat at night. So very naturally, I end up, whether I like it or not, I end up with a lot of my hunger and a lot of my food eating happening at night, because there's an emotional component, et cetera, et cetera. So for me, it works better for, like Jake was saying, to eat a little bit more the night before, and and what happens is that food, when we go to bed, our food doesn't just continue digesting the way it is when we're up and moving around. When we go to bed, our digestion slows. The food that we ate that evening, more or less, especially if you ate it pretty close to bed, more or less kind of just sits in your stomach all night as you're sleeping. I mean, there's processes going on, and I'm not trying to get into the science of that, but for the most part, it slows down dramatically. So what happens is, when you wake up in the morning, that food is still there. Those nutrients are still there to be called upon for that workout. So by eating the night before, you have the energy the next morning, but then you got to mitigate the whole thing that Jake touched on, which is you don't want to eat too late, because you don't, that can cause you not sleep very well. You might, there's all these little things that can go wrong with that. But when we are willing to try new things, and ask ourselves, how does this fit into my personal makeup? Then we start asking the more important questions, in my opinion, which is, how does this work for me? And that might be like Jake. You might get up in the morning and find that you work out better if you get up and eat a little bit, or you might be like me, where for me, I know even if I eat a bunch in the morning, I'm going to eat a bunch in the evening. And again, we'll dive into the psychology of that later, but I know I'm aware of my psychology and the fact that I'm going to eat at night. And I found a way that it worked for me. Granted, it took me a long time to get to this place, so.
And I just want to point out real quick to finish up the answer to that question. You said experiment. I love that. Mm-hmm. I think that the great thing with fitness is try to be the scientist and also be the artist. So the scientist, as far as like we know some of these black and white principles, basic things that we all know, but then the artist part of you, it's not the cookie cutter stuff. It's the experimentation and design and all that stuff. So have the mentality of both, and it's actually kind of fun. You see what works for you over time. And it's kind of an ongoing thing too. It's not just necessarily one day you have the exact perfect regimen or game plan or whatever it is. You're kind of experimenting over time, and then you find what works for you. And then if you need to tweak it eventually or refine it, then you do so.
Can I add on to that too? That two things you gain with that is flexibility and resilience.
I like that.
And when we're talking about flexibility and resilience, not physically, we're talking about with our eating, right? Yep. Because when we get down to it, these flexibility and resilience that you gain from this experimentation are going to be the more valuable aspects anyway, because you'll always be able to adapt, right?
Absolutely. All right, everyone. If you liked our content and you enjoyed the show, go ahead and give us a follow on our show if you haven't. And then if you could scroll down to the bottom of your phone there and leave us a 5-star review, that would be greatly appreciated. It's going to help grow the show tremendously. You can find us on Instagram at Mission Driven Made. We would love to connect with you. And we started a free online fitness community called The Forum. So it's a place, The Forum. It's a place where you can go on with other listeners of the podcast and converse and ask Clayton and I questions, anything that's fitness, nutrition, health, mindset, or just life stuff, you can ask us questions on there. We're going to be on there every day, checking in, posting, and just communicating with you. Everyone's welcome, whether you are a fitness enthusiast, whether you are just learning about fitness, or you are someone that participates in fitness every once in a while. All of you are welcome. We would be happy to have you. So you're going to find a link for that also in the show description. All right, everyone, we hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. We love all of you, and until next time, stay mission driven.